Hi, this is author Alexis Marie Chute of the 8th Island Trilogy. So I'm going to read the first chapter from my novel, Above the Star. And I just want to point out that I'm standing in front of my at-home green screen. So it is a giant wall in the kids' playroom. On the other side, where you can't see, it is complete disaster area. Actually, I should take a picture and show you. Okay, so now you've seen that monstrosity of mess. And you can have this beautiful, peaceful background, but green is, it's okay. So I'm thinking, since we all can't get outside, maybe I'll read this book to you in a bit of a different setting. What do you think about this? Or maybe this? How about this? Ooh, underwater, ooh. Hello. Okay, enough goofing around. How about this? The 8th Island Trilogy has 3 main characters. Frumpy senior citizen Grandpa Archie, his granddaughter Ella, who's 14, and Ella's mom, Tessa. So the story is told through their 3 perspectives in this beautifully interesting braided narrative. So Grandpa Archie, he goes out on a mission, a secret mission, to find his missing son, Ella's dad. What Ella and her mom Tess don't know is that Grandpa Archie has taken them on this cruise to go find this mysterious creature named Zeno. And Archie thinks that Zeno's going to be able to help him find his son Arden. What Grandpa Archie doesn't know is that Zeno has his own secret agenda, and he accidentally helps Archie transport not just them, but the whole cruise ship full of people to this other magical island. And there they have adventures, there's danger, there's a little bit of romance, and they discover that there is a cure for Ella in this other magical world. And yet, this cure and Ella, she's entangled with the fate of all worlds. So it's quite an interesting dynamic. And Ella can't speak. She has cancer, and so all of her chapters are from first-person perspective, where Archie and Tessa's chapters are third-person perspective. And Ella also illustrates. A little bit later in the book, you will see some of her illustrations where she is actually like telling part of the story and part of her experience visually. So it's quite cool in that way. I do want to say that this book is obviously perfect for adults, teens, young adults. Some people have given me feedback that it's a little bit more violent than they would expect from a YA fantasy. So think about if you like the Divergent series, the Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, there's death and killing in that, and yet it moves the story forward and there's a purpose behind it. So that's what it's like in the 8th Island Trilogy as well. Okay, should I get to reading? I think so. So chapter 1 of Above the Star, it starts in our world. This is a series that's called Portal Fantasy. It's where the action and the main characters begin in the human realm and they get transported to a different place. So this is really setting the stage for everything that is to come. The Atlantic Odyssey awaits its passengers at the mainland of the Spanish harbor, sitting stoic and stable in the water, like the architecture that grows out of the sea along the coastline. It'll be okay, Tessa says to herself, shading her pale green eyes against the ship's reflection of the smoldering Barcelona sun. The cruise ship isn't even rocking. The breeze threatens to billow upward Tessa's turquoise, gingham-checkered circle skirt that she grips tightly to her legs. She swallows hard and plants her feet wide on the dock, attempting to calm the motion sickness already curling in her stomach at the sight of the unsettled water, which cracks indignantly against the weathered wood of the harbor's jetties and splashes up the side of the ship. Its foam reaches for the portholes. The distant horizon is shadowed with a faint though expanding darkness. 14-year-old Ella stands beside her mother, her drawing journal and artist pens clutched in one hand, and her school library's stained copy of an anatomy guide for illustrators in the other. Ella pays no attention to the weather, in her colorful leggings and oversized black t-shirt, but for the winds, bend and crinkling of the pages she studies. She snaps the book shut and taps Tessa's bare arm. Her mother's goosebumped skin exposed in her fitted white tank top, tucked into the high waist of her skirt. "What is it, Elle?" Tessa smiles and gathers Ella's long honey blonde bangs behind her ears, but it's no use. The wind, gentle at dawn, is now tipping over the wide-brimmed hats of the tourists, studying their cruise itineraries and maps, and braiding the hair of women shifting their weight from one sandaled foot to the other, impatient to board. "Exciting, isn't it?" Tessa adds. Ella swings her backpack around her shoulder to her chest and tucks away her book and drawing tools, then begins to gesture with her hands, signing a word from American Sign Language. Her palm faces her forehead, her fingers fanned, and in a downward swooping gesture ending at her chin, she closes her fingers to her thumb, also shutting her eyes. She repeats this several times. Her midnight blue painted nails complement her icy colored eyes that quickly flick open to ensure her message is received. Tessa recognizes the sign and answers. "Sleeping." Ella nods, then points first to herself, then to Tessa, and finally to an old man sitting on a splintered wooden bench a few paces away. His weathered face and drooping nose are nearly wedged between the pages of a scuffed leather book that he reads intently, protectively, his shoulders hunched in his khaki coat to block the view. Ella finishes her thought by raising her index finger and pivoting her hand side to side, signing the word "where." She scrunches her eyebrows together, the language's method for communicating a question. "Sleep, you, me, Grandpa," Tessa says, piecing together her daughter's question. Ella had not spoken in 6 months, ever since a seizure had spasmed through her petite body. It confirmed the worst. Ella's brain tumor had grown. Tessa brightens with understanding. "Where will we sleep on the cruise?" "Well, you and I are going to share a cabin. It'll be like a long sleepover. That'll give us plenty of girl time. Grandpa Archie will have his own cabin." Tessa looks over at her father-in-law. Her smile slowly fades. Archie moved in with Tessa and her husband, the ever-optimistic, studiously handsome Arden, when Ella was 7 years old. Arden had worried about his father's well-being after his mom died. "It won't be permanent, just a few months while Dad finds a smaller place and adjusts. I'll make sure he behaves," Arden promised. Not even a week had passed before Archie's wool socks were tucked into every crevice of the couch, and his stained mouthguard laid forgotten in his cup of Earl Grey after breakfast. The walls of their boxy 1960s Seattle bungalow were not thick enough to muffle Archie's lion-like snores, which woke Ella and sent her from her princess bed to snuggle under the covers with Tessa and Arden. Ella was a wiggler. She would root herself in the center of the bed between her parents and for half an hour rest still before rotating her legs and eventually her torso ever so slightly, like the long and short arms of a clock marking the passage of time. It was a sleepless spell for all but Archie, who shuffled out of his room every morning, stretching, scratching, yawning, and grinning while offering, "Good morning, everybody," on a gust of rank breath. 1 week turned into 2, 2 months turned into 3, and the years began to multiply. Arden did his best to tidy up after his father and ensure Archie's robe was fastened after his morning bathroom ritual with the Seattle Times. "He's forgetful, that's all," Arden would say, pushing his chunky frames up his nose and brushing aside his dark hair from his forehead. His endearing nervous habits. "How did your mom put up with this?" Tessa complained. "I'll talk to Dad." But Arden never did, for that was the time Ella's headaches and vomiting began. MRI and CT scans confirmed the presence of the tumor, which was greedily expanding in Ella's 10-year-old brain and spinal cord. It coiled itself at the base of her skull, so horribly entwined that not even the most skilled pediatric surgeon could extract it. The radiation oncologist began external beam therapy to shrink the tumor, but Ella did not understand. The medical team strapped her small body to a chair so she couldn't fidget. Her feet dangled an inch above the floor, and her chin rested on a plastic oval ledge swung over on a metal arm. The machine that delivered the high-energy X-rays was aimed at the soft, flush pink skin of Ella's neck. Tessa could only watch from an attached room, where her tears dampened her long blonde hair as she pressed her forehead and hands against a pane of glass, her breath fogging the view of her screaming, terrified child. Years passed. Arden would come home from Seattle University, where he worked as a historian and professor of ancient Egyptian dynasties, only to find Archie pacing on the front steps. "We've got to do something, son. I don't know what, but we need a miracle." Archie clutched Arden's shoulders so tightly that his fingertips turned white, until Arden shrugged hard out of his father's grip. Archie and Ella, his only grandchild, had developed a playful and protective bond in the 5 years of sharing a hall bathroom and a host of inside jokes. Father and son would stand without words on the front steps for what seemed like hours. Arden removed his glasses and ran his fingers along his eyelashes, brooding silently. Archie wrung his handkerchief between his deeply creased palms until its fibers frayed and fell to the ground. The younger of the two men would cross the threshold first, only to find a pale Ella asleep on Tessa's lap, where they sat on the dated kitchen tiles, with whatever dinner his wife was cooking burning in the pot. The whole house reeked of vomit and charred food. Tessa simply looked up at Arden with hollow eyes. A chipper young woman in a white skirt and blue blazer, with a gold crest embroidered on its breast, switches on a portable microphone and speaker. It shrieks loudly. "Welcome to Constellation's Cruise Line," she begins, attaching the mic to a flimsy stand. "My name is Valerie, and I am your cruise director. Our team is full of nautical knowledge and insider tips on the local landscape and culture. So don't be a stranger. We will board in just a moment. Please excuse this brief delay. But while we wait, it is my immense pleasure to introduce Captain Nathaniel Billows, who will be guiding us through Spain's Canary Islands on this proud vessel, the Atlantic Odyssey." Valerie gestures to the tall, broad-shouldered man beside her, in his early 40s, Tessa guesses, maybe only 5 years older than herself, before clapping ardently, cueing the crowd on the waiting platform. The captain approaches the microphone. He is dressed in the classic, brilliant white seaman suit, its ornamental black eulipits decorated with gold lines and the executive curl of the captain's insignia. "Thank you all, and thank you, Valerie," he says as he scans the passengers with a confident gaze, bowing his head ever so slightly, his free hand holding the black brim of his stiff white hat up to his chest. "Valerie is our cruise director and leader of guest services. She's more than happy to assist you while on our voyage, both day," he smiles cheekily at Valerie, "and night." Valerie blushes and toys with a strand of her shoulder-length brown hair. Her pale face flushes with color. She smooths the front of her blazer. "Please, call me Nate," he continues, as he swings his hat back onto his ash-blonde crew cut and rubs his palms together. "You folks are in for a scenic treat. For the next 11 days, we will explore the 7 main volcanic Canary Islands. One legend says the islands are the mountaintops of sunken Atlantis. Another tells the tale of a mythical being who kidnapped the sun and hid it inside one of the volcanoes. Still, another myth speaks of an 8th island." Captain Nate's voice slips into a whisper, and he widens his brown eyes and spreads his hands wide. "Only the setting sun will reveal the location of the mystery island. But don't blink, or it will vanish as quickly as it appeared." With the captain's words, a low screech slips out of Ella's mouth as she tries to laugh or speak. Tessa does not know which, as the tumor tears through the normal sound like a deeply scratched record. The curiosity on Ella's face morphs to embarrassment, and she drops her sunglasses from the top of her head to her nose, hiding her eyes behind their reflective lenses, and she crosses her arms. Tessa puts a comforting arm around her daughter, while glaring at the passengers that turn with disgusted expressions to see where the noise originated. Valerie, back at the microphone, announces, "Our first stop, the port at Arrecife, on the island of Lanzarote." Her two-way radio chirps in her hand, and she listens. "Wonderful news, folks! We are ready. Welcome aboard." Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the start of Above the Star. And please check out all the books in the 8th Island Trilogy. Book 1, Above the Star, Book 2, Below the Moon, and Book 3, Inside the Sun. Thank you so much, and please share.